Before India became independent, it was ruled by the British for nearly 200 years. The people of India lived in their own land, but had no freedom, no power, and no respect. Cruel laws kept them silent. Farmers paid heavy taxes, yet they still lived in poverty. Indians were forced to work for the British masters while their own families suffered. Even in their own country, Indians were treated as strangers. In 1919, the British passed the Rowlatt Act. It allowed police to arrest without warrant. It allowed people to be jailed without trial. This Black Act filled Indians with anger and fear. On 13 April 1919, thousands of men, women, and children gathered at Jallianwala Bagh in Amritsar. Some had come to protest against the cruel Rowlatt Act. Others had come to celebrate the Baisakhi festival. And many came simply to attend a public meeting that was being held there. Then, British Brigadier General Reginald Dyer marched into Jallianwala Bagh with armed troops. He blocked the only exit and, without any warning, gave the ruthless order.
Fire!
Bullets rained without warning. Around 1,000 people were killed and more than 1,500 injured. That garden of life became a garden of death. Later, a young boy from Punjab came to that place. He was only 11 years old. He bent down, picked up the blood-soaked soil, pressed it to his forehead, and made a vow. I will fight until my last breath to free my motherland. He even carried some of that blood-soaked soil back home and kept it as a sacred reminder of the lives lost for freedom. That boy's name was Bhagat Singh. And at just 23 years old, he walked to the gallows with a smile, shouting the words that still echo across the country. Inquilab Zindabad, long live the revolution. These were not just words. For Bhagat Singh, this slogan was a call to wake up the nation. It meant that the fight for freedom would not die with one person. It would live on in every Indian heart until India was free. This is the story of the boy who became the flame of India's freedom, Bhagat Singh. Bhagat Singh was born on 28 September 1907 in the small village of Banga in Punjab. His father, Kishan Singh, and his uncles, Ajit Singh and Swaran Singh, were not ordinary men. They were freedom fighters who had already challenged the British. Bhagat was not born into silence. He was born into the thunder of freedom's call. His mother, Vidyavati, was a gentle yet strong woman. She raised him with stories of courage and sacrifice. Before he knew the world, his mother's words filled him with the strength of patriotism. From childhood, he was different. While other boys played ordinary games, Bhagat Singh dreamed of freedom. At just 8 years old, he told his family, "When I grow up, I will drive the British out of India." His education began at a village school, but soon his father admitted him to Dayanand Anglo-Vedic (DAV) High School in Lahore. This school, inspired by the Arya Samaj, taught discipline, pride in Indian culture, and love for the nation. Even as a boy, Bhagat Singh was a deep thinker. In school, when he learned how the British controlled India, his young eyes would shine with anger. He asked questions other children never asked. Why are we not free in our own country? Why do we need foreign rulers to control our lives? He loved books on Indian history, Sikh heroes, and freedom movements around the world. At just 12, he could already discuss politics better than many adults. In 1920, Mahatma Gandhi launched the non-cooperation movement. It was India's first great mass movement against British rule. People boycotted British goods, and many students left British government schools. They refused foreign clothes and spun khadi as a symbol of self-reliance. Among the millions inspired was a young schoolboy, Bhagat Singh, only 13 years old. He followed Gandhi's call with great enthusiasm. He burned foreign cloth, shouted patriotic slogans, and dreamed that freedom was near. But then came the shocking day, 4 February 1922, in a small town called Chauri Chaura in Uttar Pradesh. The protest was peaceful, but after the police fired on the crowd, violence broke out. A police station was burned, and 22 policemen died in the fire. Gandhi, heartbroken by this violence, immediately suspended the entire movement. The nation was stunned. For millions, it was a moment of silence and disappointment. Bhagat Singh began to think, why should one act of violence end the hopes of millions? He wondered, how could nonviolence bring freedom when the British always used violence to crush peaceful protests? As Bhagat Singh entered his teenage years, his parents began to think about his future. By the age of 16, his parents were already planning his marriage, but Bhagat Singh's heart was set only on freedom. One day, in 1923, he quietly packed his few belongings. Before leaving, he wrote a short note to his father. In it, he explained that he had already dedicated his life to the nation. There was no place for family life or marriage. He could not accept a home of his own when the entire country was still in chains. He left the letter behind and walked away from his family home. From that day, Bhagat Singh did not belong to just one household. He belonged to the entire nation. Later, he joined National College in Lahore, founded by Lala Lajpat Rai. Here, Bhagat studied not only literature and history, but also the revolutions of Russia, Ireland, and Italy. He learned that the fight for freedom was not just India's struggle. It was part of a larger human fight against injustice everywhere. But Bhagat Singh's education did not come from books alone. He learned from the farmers working in the fields, from the suffering of the poor, and from the injustice he saw all around him. This mix of family sacrifice, strong education, and world knowledge turned young Bhagat Singh into more than a student. It turned him into a future revolutionary. In 1925, India was shaken by the Kakori train conspiracy. On August 9, revolutionaries of the Hindustan Republican Association stopped a train near Lucknow. They seized British government money being transported on it. It was the British government's money, but it actually came from cruel taxes on India's farmers and laborers. The revolutionaries wanted to use it to fund the fight for freedom. The British soon struck back. Ram Prasad Bismil, Ashfaqullah Khan, Rajendra Lahiri, and Roshan Singh were executed. Only Chandrasekhar Azad escaped, and his courage echoed across the nation. One young man who was inspired by their courage was Bhagat Singh. By 1926, his path led him to Kanpur, where he met revolutionaries inspired by the Kakori heroes. He worked in a printing press, wrote for underground newspapers, spread secret leaflets, and organized meetings. At the same time, he never stopped reading. Marx, Lenin, Mazzini, Garibaldi, Irish rebels, and Russian freedom fighters. Books filled his mind and action filled his hands. That same year, at only 19, he founded the Naujawan Bharat Sabha, the Youth of India. Through fiery speeches, patriotic songs, and bold posters, he inspired the young generation to rise. Soon after, he joined the Hindustan Socialist Republican Association, HSRA, led by Chandrasekhar Azad. Here, he trained in weapons and explosives, preparing for a bigger fight against British rule. Bhagat Singh was no longer just a dreamer of freedom. He was now a soldier of revolution. In 1927, the British announced the Simon Commission, a committee to discuss India's political future. But when it arrived in 1928, Indians were shocked. The commission had 7 members, and every single one of them was British. Not a single Indian was included. For India, this was an insult. How could foreigners decide the destiny of a nation without its own people? Across the country, protests erupted with black flags, and people shouted the slogan, "Simon, go back! Simon, go back!" In Lahore, the protest was led by the great leader, Lala Lajpat Rai. known as the Lion of Punjab. Bhagat Singh was there in the crowd, marching proudly with the people. On October 30th, 1928, the police, under Officer James A. Scott, launched a brutal lathi charge on the protesters. Lala Lajpat Rai was struck heavily on the head and chest. As he lay injured, he said, "Every blow on my body will prove a nail in the coffin of the British Empire." A few weeks later, he died from his injuries. For Bhagat Singh, it was unbearable. This was not just the death of a leader, it was the murder of India's pride. He vowed, Lala Lajpat Rai's death will not go in vain. One day, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, Sukhdev, and Chandrasekhar Azad planned to kill Scott in revenge. On December 17, 1928, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Chandrasekhar Azad waited outside the Lahore police station. Their target was James A. Scott, the man responsible for Lala Lajpat Rai's death. Rajguru aimed first, Bhagat Singh followed, and Azad stood guard for their escape. That afternoon, a British officer stepped out of the station. Believing it was Scott, they opened fire. But it was actually John P. Saunders, an assistant superintendent of police. Saunders fell dead on the street. By evening, Lahore was in shock. The British were furious. And for Bhagat Singh, there was no turning back. To stay hidden, he made a painful sacrifice. He cut his long hair and shaved his beard, breaking a sacred tradition of his Sikh identity. With his new look, coat, hat, and clean-shaven face, he looked like an ordinary young man in Western clothes. He moved secretly from house to house in Lahore and Delhi, living in safe hideouts with comrades. The British called him a dangerous man, but for Indians he had become a soldier of revolution. His name was now whispered with pride. By 1929, Bhagat Singh was living underground. He moved in secret, changing houses in Lahore and Delhi, always planning the next step with his comrades. The British thought they had weakened the revolutionaries after the Saunders case, but Bhagat Singh was about to prove them wrong. On the morning of April 8, 1929, Bhagat Singh and Bhatakeshwar Dutt walked quietly into the Central Legislative Assembly in Delhi. They blended in with the crowd of ordinary visitors, carrying small bags that held their secret. No one noticed them as they took their seats in the visitors' gallery. The British were passing new laws to crush workers and silence India's voice. And then, suddenly, boom, 2 bombs exploded. Smoke filled the chamber. But these bombs were not thrown to kill. They were thrown to awaken. As panic spread, Bhagat Singh's voice thundered through the hall. Inquilab Zindabad! Long live the revolution! Instead of escaping, he and Dutt threw leaflets that declared, "We want to make the deaf hear. It is not bombs we are throwing, it is the voice of revolution." The police rushed in and arrested both men. But Bhagat Singh and Dutt went willingly. For them, the courtroom would become another battlefield. During the trial, Bhagat Singh turned every hearing into a stage. He explained why India's youth had chosen the path of revolution. He explained that their fight was not just against British rulers, but also against poverty, inequality, and exploitation under British rule. He fearlessly attacked British injustice, and his words spread like wildfire through newspapers. The British thought they had silenced him, but by arresting him, they made him louder. Bhagat Singh was no longer just a name whispered in secret. He had become a national hero, a symbol of defiance. Bhagat Singh was now behind bars, but his spirit was free. Inside prison walls, he did not remain silent. He turned the jail into another battleground for justice. He read endlessly: Marx, Lenin, Rousseau, history, philosophy, and economics. The more he read, the deeper his vision became. He believed freedom meant more than driving out the British. It also meant ending poverty, inequality, and exploitation under British rule. He wanted a free India where the poor would have dignity and every voice would matter. But prison life showed him another kind of injustice. Indian prisoners were treated far worse than European prisoners. The food was rotten, the clothes were torn, and the treatment was cruel. Bhagat Singh and his comrades demanded equality. When the jail authorities ignored them, they launched a hunger strike. For days, then weeks, they refused food. Their demand was simple: equal rights for Indian prisoners. The hunger strike shook the nation. Crowds gathered outside the prison gates, shouting his name. Newspapers reported on every passing day. The youth of India were inspired, the British were embarrassed. After 63 long days, tragedy struck. Bhagat Singh's comrade, Jatin Das, died from starvation. He was only 24. When his body was taken from Lahore to Calcutta, thousands gathered at every station along the way. In Calcutta, Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose himself led a funeral procession. More than 100,000 people joined, turning the city into a sea of mourners. The British watched in fear. They saw not just grief, but the rising power of a nation united by sacrifice. From his prison cell, Bhagat Singh also wrote essays and letters. He spoke of freedom, socialism, equality, and sacrifice. One of his most famous writings, Why I Am an Atheist, explained his belief in reason and human courage over blind faith. Soon after, the British reopened the Lahore conspiracy case, linking Bhagat Singh to the killing of Saunders. The verdict was clear. Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev were sentenced to death. His father, Kishan Singh, tried to save him. He hired lawyers, filed petitions, even appealed in the assembly. But Bhagat Singh refused to ask for mercy. He said, "To ask for pardon is to admit guilt. I am proud of what I did. If I die smiling, the revolution will grow stronger." In his final letter to his mother, Vidyavati, he wrote, "My life has been dedicated to the noblest cause, the freedom of my country. Therefore, there is no need for tears. Be brave, mother. Your son will not disgrace you." On March 23, 1931, at just 23 years old, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev walked to the gallows. As the noose was placed around his neck, Bhagat Singh shouted one last time, "Inquilab Zindabad! Long live the revolution!" Rajguru and Sukhdev roared with him like lions. The British officers stood in shock, unable to believe the courage of these young men. They smiled, even as they walked to their death. At 7:30 p.m., they were hanged, but their voices did not die. Bhagat Singh's life was short, only 23 years, but his courage lit a fire in millions. For him, death was nothing. Freedom for his people was everything. His execution shocked the nation. In cities and villages, people wept openly. For the British, he was a dangerous revolutionary. But for Indians, he became a national hero, Bhagat Singh. His bravery inspired countless youth to join the freedom struggle. His writings planted seeds of equality and justice that continue to inspire generations. And his final slogan, Inquilab Zindabad, long live the revolution, Bhagat Singh did not live to see India's freedom on August 15, 1947. But his sacrifice, along with that of many others, helped make that day possible. Even today, his name is spoken with respect, his story told with pride, and his dream carried in every Indian heart. Bhagat Singh. If you like this story, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful life stories.